Good day, everyone, and welcome to Language Lab. Today, we're looking at Language Arts BGCSE and BJC brief overview. So, we want to take time to actually do a brief overview of BGCSE and BJC to those that live in the Bahamas. And um, firstly, I want you to introduce yourself. I want you to tell me why you're here in the comment section. Like, what prompted you to the channel? What is it that you care about? What is it that you want to learn? Introduce yourself, and then I also want to introduce myself. Tell you my name is Luxon Tucson, and why is this so important to me? Before we even get into the language lab and what the language lab is all about. So I have been an educator for about 4 years. 4 years, I graduated from the University of the Bahamas. I received the English Language and Literature Award education for education, and I've noticed that there has been an issue when it comes down to literacy, when it comes down to even our examinations, our BGCSE and BJC national examination scores. And so it's important to me because I want to be able to make a difference. I want to be able to make a difference, and so that's why I'm here. And it's important to me because articulation is important to me, and we'll get more into that briefly. So, what is Language Lab all about? Well, the vision of Language Lab, first of all, is a touring service company. Is there to make a difference nationally by raising the literacy rates and the national GPA, like I somewhat alluded to before, and also we we are there to provide every person with the skills that they need to be articulate. This point speaks overall to my life in general. A little brief testimony. I had a speech impediment that basically plagued me up to grade six. I believe it was grade six where I actually started taking classes, speech therapy classes, but before then I wasn't able to articulate. I was unable to speak. And I remember my mom always constantly praying and, you know, having me, I don't know, to drink certain liquids that she had put together and pray over and help me actually just speak because I had a problem with articulation. If you actually pay attention to some of the words that I pronounce, you would find that to be a case. And it's nerve wracking always having, to try and speak, and sometimes people will not understand you. Kids were mean. Kids can be very mean. They would laugh at you. And I even had, a teacher laugh at me when I actually tried to ask a question. So that kind of put a damper in my self esteem. I had and struggled with low self esteem for a very long time. I believe that was tied to the fact that I was not articulate, and people saw it. You can't hide the fact that you can't speak. Every time you speak, you're not pronouncing anything but sense. Everything sounds like gibberish. Became a laughing stock until I went to speech therapy and I found the ability to articulate. And so someone gave me that gift of speech. And they gave me that gift of speech, and that opened doors for me in so many different ways. And I'm here today as a testimony of the fact that there was someone that God used to pour into my life to where now I'm able to sit before you here today and to put these fancy slides up and to be able to speak to my students simply because someone poured into me and taught me the skills. And that same way, I want to provide every person with the skills that they need to be articulate. I'm not a speech therapist, and so my job is a little bit different from a speech therapist. I don't go down to the nitty gritty of how you you form your tongue to pronounce certain words and all of that stuff. Um, but I am here so that everyone has a chance to speak in a very articulate way. Because as you will find out, life requires you to be able to voice your opinion and concerns. And so a part of you possessing space on this earth, a part of you asserting yourself in your domain is your ability to articulate your values, your ability to articulate your principles, and by sorry, articulate, I mean your ability to speak, your ability to communicate in a clear and coherent manner. And so this is what the whole vision of Language Lab is all about and why I care so much about. So jump right into today's topic. We're looking at the brief overview of BGCSE and BJC. And so one of the things that we have to look at is the four critical skill areas. You have usage, you have reading, writing skills, and listening skills. And these are skills that are covered both in both exams, BGCSE, which is a high school exam, so you would take it typically when you're in your high school, probably um, grade 11 or 12, and typically BJC is taken in grade 9. And so, sorry about that. When it comes down to these critical areas, usage is one of the things that are tested, particularly in BJC, but also you need to know it for BGCSE. You need to understand words and how you form different words depending upon the context that the word is used. So you wouldn't use educate in every single sentence. Some words may call for a different form of educate. Educate like education, educator, educated. So all of these things are we talk about we talk about usage and also context clues in general, and finding out what words mean depending upon the context in which they're used. So you have to be able to do that. And then we have reading skills. You have to be able to read and read very proficiently. Read in order to not just mull over words or pronounce words, but read in order to comprehend and understand what's being communicated by the author, what's being communicated by the person that wrote the paragraph or the letter or the essay or the story. You have to be able to pull out the details, understanding both, as we'll get into in a little topic, the implicit and the explicit details. And then writing skills. You have to be able to write in a way that is engaging, thought provoking, enticing, interesting. Um, words. You have to write in a way that is captivating your audience. And that's what this is all about. Being able to communicate using your words on written paper, using your written words on paper. Sorry, and then listening skills, being able to actually hear what's being said, being able to determine the tone, and being able to determine your mood, and being able to um, interact actively with the recording, being able to take the notes from the recording, and being able to answer in thoughtful ways to questions that are posed to you based upon the recording that you will listen to. So these are the critical skill areas. And other criteria you need to know in terms of the national exams to be aware of is that it's all about communication first of all. Understanding first of all how to use information from your own personal experiences, your observations, your research, reading material, etc., and putting it in a way that is interesting. Putting it in a way, as we speak to point two, that is organized, and in a way where you present your facts, your ideas, and your opinions clearly, concisely, and adequately. You'll have to be able to communicate effectively based on point three, appropriately what is felt and what is imagined. And then you have to be able to understand first of all, and use a range of apps vocabulary, vocabulary that's suitable for your age, that's suitable for the level of the exam that you're taking. Very, very important criteria. Other criteria to understand is we're not only testing your ability to communicate, your ability to also comprehend as well, to understand as I stated before, stated or implied ideas from information read or heard. You have to be able to understand. So we're testing your reading comprehension. We're testing your ability to evaluate and present given information according to specific directions. So you'll come across terms like directed writing, where you're giving a certain set of directives to write in a certain way, or even typical typical exams of your paper one, as we will look into various type of papers later on, where you have to um, wherever you choose, wherever writing prompt you choose, you have to go based on those guidelines. And we'll be looking at that. We'll also be looking at open-ended, what I call open-ended and closed-ended prompts. And then use of range. We can't go anywhere with grammar, so you have to use a range of grammatical and mechanical structures accurately. So you have to be able at the end of the day to cross your T's, to dot your I's, to put the full stops where they need to be, the commas where they need to be, to spell your words correctly, to use the correct verb tenses based upon the tense at your end, to be consistent in your tenses. You have to be able to um, have paragraphs that have minimal errors in them, minimal, that do not have what we call run-on sentences and comma splices and all of these things. Don't worry if you don't know what these are. We will get into these things at a later date and other videos in the series. So you have to understand these things. All right. So scheme of assessment, and this is basically the last thing we'll be looking at. Take a note of the fact that your paper, if you look at the BJC and the weighting, your BJC has two papers, paper one and paper two, and you'll find in paper one you are being tested your writing skills. In particular, you'll be asked to write an essay. You will get to choose one essay from the paper, and then the second section of that paper is asking you to write a business letter. And so you have to know that those are important. You have to know that you have two um, questions that you're answering in that paper one for BJC, and then it's worth 40% of your overall grade for BJC, and then you have your listening and reading skills. And so at the end of the day, that's paper two, and so you have a recording that you're going to have to listen to, and then from listening to our recording, you're going to have to answer questions pertaining to our recording. You also have passages that you also have to answer questions based on. And then usage, where you have your closed passage and all of those things that you also have to do as well. And that's 60%. And that's the comprehension component of your exam that goes into over 100% of your grade. For BGCSE, you have two, and forgive me for not having on the slide, you have two categories of exams. You have core, then you have extended. And with core, that's you do three papers. You do paper one, continuous writing, which is essay based again, maybe about 350 500 word essay that you have to do on any topic that you choose, bearing in mind that every topic, every question, every prompt basically is pointing you in the direction of a particular mode of writing, such as narrative or expository or descriptive or persuasive. Whereas maybe I believe it is your question six and your question eight that is more, as we will look at, the open-ended prompts where you can write using any mode of writing. Alright, so continuous writing, that's worth 40%. We'll get into we'll get into different papers. And then we have listening comprehension. So listening comprehension is, as the name suggests, you're simply listening to audio recording, and it can be based on advertisements. It can be based on any, you know, maybe a story. It can be based on a panel discussion. So listening has different, I guess, modes of presentation. But at the end of the day, you're listening to a recording and you're going to take notes on the recording and then you're going to answer questions based on the recording. 15%, that's word. And then we have reading comprehension, direct writing, where you have to read the passage and answer a question. And we'll dive more deeply into the different type of questions in that paper 3. Now, all of that I spoke about is the core. Is paper 1, paper 2, and paper 3. Now, if you are one of those persons that believe that you want an A, and I failed to mention, sorry, that with paper 1, 2, and 3, when you take in core, the highest you can get is a C. So you can do get all correct, 100% on every single question, every single paper, and still end up with a C. Whereas if you take extended, you can get A. But bear in mind you also have a certain level of questions that you have to be prepared for. So extended, you deal with reading comprehension again and directed writing, where you have now instead of one passage, you have two passages, and you have um, a bunch of where I would say short essays that you will have to write based on you have like about 4 questions, two per passage, and you have to write your essays. It can be writer style responses, summary responses to the questions. So this is the overview of it. Um, bear in mind when you take bear in mind, sorry, when you take the BGCSE and you take an extended, that paper 4 kind of takes over paper 2 and 3. It kind of, and I'll get back to you probably more clarification, but at the end of the day, it works itself out in a way where now that paper 4 kind of overshadows the rest of the papers that you will take except for continuous writing, at least the reading comprehension and the active writing portion of it. So examiners calculate in such a way that it still comes out to 100, even though if you were to add these percentages up, you'll find out that goes over 100. All right, and in another video coming soon, I'll give you more definite a definite breakdown as to how they do this. All right, so that's the end of this video. I hope you found it interesting. If you did find it interesting and helpful, if you know a student that needs it, if you're a parent, you came across this video, you're always welcome to um, message me language lab 242 at gmail.com. If you have any questions or concern or you need tutoring, if you found the video helpful, like I said, please subscribe to the channel and also share it. Share it with those that are gearing up to take the national exams, because I hope that it will help them, because that's what this resource is all about. So do take care and see you in the next video.